A very good afternoon, and it's good to have you again on yet another edition of another sumptuous edition of our monthly flagship program. Here is where we engage society's leading lights, the cream of society's intellectual class, the juggernauts of society, and they tell us about their personal life experiences. They also share their thoughts on society, their nation, and our country and our world. And that, in a nutshell, is what we do every 30 or 31 days or thereabout on Guest of the Month. My name is Tola Teriba, one of the program anchors. And of course, I have with me my regular co-anchor, Bola Aboduni.
Yeah, it's my utmost pleasure to be with you on the program again. We thank God Almighty for life. It's just about a month that we had the opportunity, and thank God for bringing us together again. It's going to be another wonderful time together. So we'll crave your indulgence to just join us, spend time with us, and of course, you're going to have a wonderful time on the program today. You're most welcome.
Well, this afternoon on the program, we are having one of Nigeria's most revered elders, an encyclopedia of culture and tradition. He is of royal ancestry, and he belongs to a generation often labeled as the last of God's true generals. He belongs to the priesthood. But before I formally reveal the identity of this eminent Nigerian, let's quickly go to our studios for some snippets.
Archbishop Ayo Ladigbolu is a Nigerian religious leader, cultural icon, and Yoruba prince known for his lifelong dedication to the preservation and modernization of Yoruba culture. Archbishop Ayo Ladigbolu was born on June 27, 1938 at Obayarita Compound in the Oyo Kingdom of Oyo State, Nigeria, to Alhaji Raji Ake Ladigbolu and Ayomo Munirat Aderonke Ladigbolu. His father was a prince of Alaafin Shiyanbola Ladigbolu I, who reigned from 1911 to 1944, situating Ayo Ladigbolu within the royal lineage of Oyo. He grew up in a traditional Yoruba environment, participating in cultural activities such as Ayo Olopon, a traditional game, wrestling, and palace festivals like Egungun and Oro, which exposed him to Yoruba poetry, proverbs, folklore, and rituals from an early age. Born into a Muslim family, Ladigbolu initially practiced Islam and attended Arabic school at age 6, where he excelled academically, graduating ahead of his peers. Later, he converted to Christianity, which led him to pursue a religious vocation. His path as a Methodist priest included advanced education and scholarships in Texas, United States, where he gained exposure to Western culture and modernity, complementing his deep understanding of Yoruba traditions. Archbishop Ladigbolu served in the Methodist Church of Nigeria until his retirement in 2005, after which he focused on cultural preservation and modernization. He has been a key figure in organizations such as the Yoruba Unity Forum and Yoruba Parapọ̀, promoting Yoruba culture and socio-cultural development. His work emphasizes the integration of modernity with traditional Yoruba culture, demonstrating that cultural heritage and contemporary progress can coexist. Archbishop Ladigbolu is recognized as a cultural icon and intellectual alongside figures like D.O. Fagunwa and Adebayo Faleti. His unique position as a religious leader and cultural advocate allows him to bridge Christianity, Yoruba tradition, and Islam, fostering dialogue and understanding across these spheres. He has influenced scholarship, preservation, and political discourse in southwestern Nigeria, often serving as a mentor and advisor to leaders and scholars. At 84, Archbishop Ladigbolu entered the race to become the next Alaafin of Oyo, reflecting his continued engagement with Yoruba leadership and cultural heritage. He maintains a strong commitment to philanthropy, community development, and the promotion of Yoruba culture both locally and globally. Archbishop Ayoladibolu's life exemplifies a harmonious balance between tradition and modernity, making him a prominent figure in Nigerian religious, cultural, and intellectual circles.
Oh, none other than Emeritus Archbishop Ayo Ladibolu. As earlier described, a living library, an encyclopedia. One of society's brightest lights, a blue blood of royal ancestry. And all these and more, Emeritus Archbishop Ayo Ladibolu, former Archbishop, Methodist Diocese of Ilesha. Your Grace. Welcome to Guest of the
You're
Month.
welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
My great delight to be here.
Initially, I wanted to kick off this discussion with something else, but I changed my mind. Seeing your strength and agility at 84, you don't even use a walking stick. What is the secret? I'm sure you must have been asked this many times.
Well, first and foremost, I think I should express my personal appreciation to the management of BCOS for this invitation, and to also thank the staff here for the very, very warm welcome accorded me on my arrival here. Indeed, I don't consider myself a stranger here to this station because of my relationship with BCOS over the years. But the welcome today is just extraordinary, and so I really sincerely appreciate it. Now you are asking. Actually, I am 88.
Oh, pardon me, Your Grace.
88?
But whether 84, 88, or even beyond, all we can say is it is God's doing. It is God's doing. Because, you know, our lives belong to God. And everything we are and whatever we become as we enjoy our existence, the glory belongs to Him. There is actually no particular formula, special secret, or anything that one can claim for the sustenance, the strength, and the daily renewal that only God can provide. So, the secret is God. I'm not sure you are satisfied with that, but that's my answer.
Yeah, I also want to know if there are special daily routine you practice or special things you do. You know, our elders, they have a way of, you know, aging gracefully. Are there any?
Or things you stay away from?
Oh, well, from the early ages, where we've been taught to seek not to eat too much, and I've imbibed that kind of culture of not eating till I'm full every day.
Even as a prince.
Even as a prince, even as a bishop, even as an archbishop, and that's become a habit. If that has contributed in any way to sustaining one's health and growth and development, all glory be to God. We've learned to trust God and let Him dictate our directions over the years. And He has been very, very faithful. We've learned not to worry about anything.
You just spoke about moderation in the growing up years. So, and that has left me wondering, what was it like growing up in the royal palace of Oyo. You belong to the old Oyo royal ancestry. Was it all about unlimited exuberance and unbridled privileges? Or was there anything like citizenship training that prepared the royal children for the responsibilities of leadership?
Well, I was indeed very, very fortunate that I was born when Alaafin Ṣìnbọ́lá Oníkẹ̀pẹ́ Àkànbí Ládìgbòlù was on the throne. And as a young child, once a week, my grandmother, the Ayaba, took me to the palace. And I've sat on the laps of Kábíyèsí, the Alaafin, so many times, I cannot count how many. And each time when I was going back to Obayoritan residence, where we lived, they would carry foodstuff, food items, and gifts for me to take back. And so nobody was indulged, even in our growing up years. You're not allowed to take advantage of the plenty of supply of food to overeat or to try to cheat others and lord it over them. And so that encouraged not thrift in the sense of not treating oneself properly, but thrift in the sense of not wanting to be excessive in consumption. Thrift in considering that others also deserve to have a share of whatever the palace had. That's how we grew up. And it became very helpful, even when one became his own master, head of family, father to children, grandfather and everything. And so that's one thing that I believe. And it's that also I consider a gift of God, because even when one makes effort to control himself, if the spirit and the power is not inside to guide that, you will find occasionally that you overstep your bounds, and the results will tell you, the outcome will show you, and so on. And of course, like I said earlier, from growing up, one had to lead a number of others. And when you find yourself leading other people and the Spirit of God is guiding you, then you always look at what would they say? What would they think? How would they assess me? How would they judge me? Is what I'm doing going to encourage them to be better persons? And all this, of course, were part of the attributes of God through our parents and through our mentors that one has grown up into, and here we are.
Okay, contentment and discipline. How has that helped you, growing up to becoming somebody, to be reckoned with in the society? How has that helped you in life?
Well, I believe it helped in many ways. One, it prevents the over exposure of normal human greed, because all humans are created to want things for themselves. But if one's upbringing had taught you to respect other people's rights, to not assume that the whole world belongs to you alone, and to be pleased with whatever portions come your way, then when you are leading others, when others are looking up to you, obviously one begins to feel like, okay, Others too deserve to be heard. Others too deserve to be given a chance. The world is not made for you alone. And I don't know. And it has a way of, it has a magnetism of its own of drawing people to you without your asking, without your crying out, without your seeking to their favor. But all together, we will still attribute it to God.
Well, this it's very difficult for me, the way I see it, not to think the whole world belongs to you when you are a prince. Much of what we hear about the old or your royal ancestry seems to be much contrary to, what we read about in history. The excessive use of power and all that seems to be a bit contrary to what you are telling us now. So the lessons in moderation that you have outlined now, is it also to teach that there is another life, that there is another world beyond the palace walls, that, for instance, that the poor also exist beyond the walls of the palace, or were they merely lessons in self-control? Like I said, what we read about the emperors of Old Oyo and their princes seems very much contrary to what you are telling us now.
Well, there is a little bit of exaggeration, even by those who eulogize royalty. And sometimes they take one bad example and they use it as typical of the entirety. And you discover, for instance, some people will say part of our panegyrics is onikolowo gbowo for your fale kí ó lè bá àdìjà kó lè bá àdápọn kí ọmọ ọba ó lè rí jẹ níbẹ̀. Well, that was not a common behavior of the palace of Oyo or any of the palaces. But if the people find one example and they choose to exaggerate it, to elaborate it in a manner as to make it look like it represents the totality of the hierarchy, people can get carried away and not truly appreciate the depth of behavior within the royal family. Because it's not every time that the palace will favor or will incite bad behavior just so that something can come into the palace. No. Everybody is given his right. The Alaafin protects everybody, every citizen. So if there are aberrations, they don't actually represent the reality.
Like one of the, where you just gave an example to that somewhat popular saying. One of the examples we also heard about in history, I don't know whether it's a myth or reality, about the king with a smallish stature who felt ridiculed by his wife, and he had the head of his father-in-law.
But see, that's just one instance. How many kings have reigned? So if these the unusuals, the abnormals happen, and as they do in every community, it does not represent the totality of the genius of Oyo royalty.
Okay.
And so we would, of course, admit our errors now and then, but justice and equity has always been the guiding factor.
Ex-President Obasanjo once recommended a homegrown democracy template for Nigeria that would borrow templates from the old traditional royal democracies. So, are there aspects of royal democracy in the old empire as we know it, which you think can be suited to a workable homegrown democracy for our dear nation? Talking about democracy in the old Oyo Empire.
Well, yes,
recommendation.
Even before, before 100 years, before the British adopted the present democratic practices of separation of powers. This has been practiced in Oyo. And so our fathers knew that if you are king, you are king. You are overall. But then there is still the Oyomesi, who can query the overall authority. And if anybody steps beyond his bounds in obeying the law, there is the Ogboni, who can take care of such persons by giving to them the right kind of punishment, including the supreme sacrifice. And they made sure no party interferes in what the other party is doing among this setup. So in any democracy where the executive interferes with what the judiciary is doing, or in any democracy where the legislative arm pronounce laws and legislations that will be harmful to justice and fairness and equity, then there will be chaos. And this was, our fathers succeeded in avoiding that because each party kept within their bounds. And it's still possible today. You will hear people saying this and that about the use of power or misuse of power, or perhaps instigating things to happen if you are not in the right party or in the right group. That was not practiced in old Oyo Empire. You had your right, and your right is protected. And you know that none of the parties ruling the entire society will deviate from its responsibility or neglect for fear of anything from doing what is right. Okay. And if we can re-adopt that today, it's still adaptable.
So if it's still adaptable, then how then do we now do it? What do you suggest that we can do?
Well, go back to history and take our history more seriously. Because Nigeria is supposed to be the teacher country on democratic rule for the entire continent of Africa. Because we had 100 years ahead of the British this system in Oyo that I'm talking about. So everybody should come to learn from us. We should be the model. And it's not too late to rethink, re-examine, and if need be, readjust our thinking so that we can take what belongs to us, set out there by the Alafins of the past, and use it for the benefit of the entire African continent.
But perhaps at that time, there were principalities and powers, there were extraterrestrial forces that made people to do the right thing at that time. I'm not sure we would want to have those forces activated again now if we are to take up part of the template of that old template.
Oh. Well, then the opportunity is right there before us, and it will be our responsibility, considering how desirous we are to be who we are supposed to be. So the responsibility is ours to take another look, even regardless of the powers and principalities. Because you see, those powers and principalities represent principles. And they are, in the Yoruba parlance, principles of Omoluabi, principles of the well-bred person. And if we can return to the principles of Omoluabi, there's nothing stopping us from going back to those things that our fathers used, and they succeeded, and they were able to help the people and help them grow, help them develop, help them share freely, help them love genuinely. They are not difficult. Those powers and principalities are principles of Omoluabi. You will say, oh, they are tied to the Ebo, they are tied to the Orisha. We have just celebrated the Egungun Oba in Oyo, for example. They are tied to the Egungun. Surely, all those symbols of power, of authority, are meant to encourage the principle of Omoluabi.
All right, let's go to your pastoral responsibilities. And let me just ask, sir, what inspired you to become a Methodist minister? Why did you choose that path?
There's a very, very long story. First, perhaps I should state why become a Christian? Because I
also at a time when it was almost sacrilegious to have conversion from either faiths, and then you deviated from the established religion of the royal household.
Yes, because
what are their consequences?
I was born and bred a Muslim. I was trained up as a Muslim. I went to at least 2 significant schools. I was at Lega, where I started my schooling in Arabic and Islamic studies, so to say. And then to move me closer home, I was brought to Sarumi, which is right across from the palace. And there I finished the learning of the Quran and graduated. I did my Wulima and so on. And I became personally involved in propagating Islam. Whenever Akeukewe visited Oyo, I was always available to assist him. And Akeukewe was a prominent Islamic evangelist of those days. And then suddenly, this turnaround came up. And of course, most of the people of the town were against it. It wasn't a laughing matter for them. And most of my people of my age deserted me. And but then it was the vision of God, the direction that I saw, that I experienced, that kept pushing me from not only just believing in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, to the point that I felt I had to sacrifice everything, including my already established family. I was already married, I had children, and so it's a total transformation, perhaps at a stage, abandonment of what was originally my core family. In fact, abandoning my entire home and living outside of Oyo. But the more I enjoyed that relationship with Christ, the more clearly I saw that direction. I readily found myself not only wanting to embrace the faith, but to become a preacher of that faith, a sharer of that faith, to the point that it will become my life's work. So it was a gradual movement to the point that I felt, okay, being a Christian, for me, accepting Christ and following him should, and having sacrificed so much, including family, home, everything, career, why not plunge full length and see what will happen? And that I did by volunteering first to start as an evangelist.
And how was it for you?
Oh, it was difficult. It was difficult because all my friends had abandoned me. Even my own parents could not understand because my mother believed until much later, because she too became a Christian before she died. Even my own mother believed that I was mentally deranged, because nobody could have enjoyed the kind of popularity I did among the young people in Oyo at that time, and then suddenly turned to something else that is unknown to the people, that is not admired by the people. But that push was of God, pushing me further and further and protecting me, because it came to a stage that even I could not walk the streets of Oyo in the daytime in those days.
You must have faced a lot of persecution.
But somehow it worked out. And I said, fine, let me start preaching. And from there, the urge, the strong desire also came. Why don't you properly become a pastor? And moved on and moved on, and till where I found myself. And so all is God's doing.
Okay, we sometimes see some of these Christian movies, and I'm sure you've seen a number of them too, where a young Yoruba prince decides to convert to a foreign religion. Mm-hmm. And the palace fairies, the spirits and the deities, are angry with him, and they make life really difficult for that prince. So was there any point in time where the palace spirits called out to you in anger over your decision to abandon them?
Certainly, my parents were upset so much that my case went to Kabiyesi Alaafin Badigashin Ladigolu II. And I was invited to the palace. And the entire family and the palace aides were there. And they wanted to know, why have I become what I became? Which was strange, which was unusual, which was unbelievable. And I later recalled that when I was called to respond, I spoke for about 20 minutes, and I was unconscious while speaking. Obviously, later, of course, I knew it was the Spirit of God that was inside of me, without my contribution, that spoke to that assembly. And all they told me was that some of them were crying and weeping, but they were weeping because they believed whatever spirit has come upon me has also turned my head upside down. And the conclusion then was, let him go. He should leave home and find a place to live, because we cannot tolerate his presence, not in this palace or anywhere around. And so somebody had to take me to Ilorin. And for 3 years, I was not living in Oyo. I was living outside Oyo. And if there was any need to visit, it was always at night. And of course, very early in the morning, I would leave so that most people would not see me or know that I was there. But 3 years after, I was invited back to the palace.
What happened to them?
They wanted me now to know. And Kabiyesi now asked some of the Kudef then to tell me that they have been following me all over for those 3 years, that they've driven me away from Oyo, that they've been following me everywhere I went. And what they have heard and the report they have received were that what I was doing must be what God, my own God, wanted me to do in life. Because everywhere, every report they have had were reports glorifying Oyo. And I didn't know. I had some gift of singing. I learned, I had some gift of composing poetry. And all these I was using and mentioning that I am from the palace of Oyo. And I was going on an evangelistic crusade all over Nigeria then. And the news was filtering back to the palace. And 3 years after I had been asked to leave Oyo, they invited me back and said, what you are doing must be what God intends for you to do with your life. So you are free to come back. And so I returned.
I'm sure part of the worries of the royal household would have been how your new faith would affect your commitment to tradition and culture. And this has led me to this question. How has, especially the radicalization of the imported religions, affected culture, tradition, and value systems?
Well, it's very unfortunate that people come to faith, particularly in Islam and Christianity, and suddenly they call everything else pagan. They call it whatever other dirty name they can find. But I was at the Egungun Festival final show and there's no way it disturbs my faith. It doesn't touch my faith. It doesn't disturb my faith. It doesn't hurt my faith because I'm a Yoruba man. And the Yoruba person cannot claim not to belong to his culture. So, but today a lot of people, even they will go to the extent of changing their names from Ogun something to Jesu something, or from Oba something to something Islamic or Arabic. Even some of them will refuse to wear native dresses. I don't want to call it the name that comes to my mind, but it's not reasonable. If nothing else. Because wearing those foreign dresses and bearing those foreign names don't change you from the person you are. And it's your belief in your God, whatever that name you give that God, it has nothing to do with your place of residence, your family, your place of origin, and the culture that holds your community together.
Where do we draw the line between tradition, culture, and fetish practices? Now, I want to draw this analogy. A core member gets posted to a rural community, and the nearest health facility is many miles away. The core member along a bush path gets bitten by a venomous snake, maybe a cobra. And the local herbalist is invited. And by way of first aid, he recites some incantations that brings out the snake's venom. Now, is this succumbing to fetish practice on the part of the core member?
What do you mean by fetish? First,
the incantation.
The incantation is not fetish.
Oh.
The incantation is scientific.
Oh.
Scientific?
Scientific.
How?
Because of the power of the word that God has given to every human being.
Metaphysics.
Yes. And so, why is that fetish? If I recite something in Arabic, will you call it fetish? If I happen to understand the Hebrew language and I recite something in Hebrew, will you call it fetish? Why are you now calling the Ofo or the Gede fetish? Is it because it's black, it's African? And because the British and others who have come to turn our brains upside down have told us anything African, anything non-British is fetish when it comes to religion or calling on God to act.
Maybe because the incantation is meant to invoke certain spirits and you cannot decide whether those spirits are clean or unclean.
How do you determine which spirit is clean, which one is unclean? If a pastor is speaking in tongue, you will say yes, he's speaking well. But when a Nigerian medicine person or a pharmacist decides to chew the atari and call on God to do something for his people, then that is fetish. Jesus. I can't understand it.
But then, at this point, I think we need to clarify or just educate our people. Their culture and their religion, how do they balance?
Well, the religion is something of your heart. Your culture is something of the wholeness of you.
Okay.
That basic understanding needs to be re-emphasized. For example, when I converted to Christianity, my focus was on Jesus and the experiences, personal experiences I had at that period of searching for how do I surrender my life to God totally and serve Him and be useful to people and so on. And I was able to follow in that direction. But it did not disturb me from being who I was born to be. I was still able to, after they called me back, I was still able to relate to my brothers, my sisters, my community, my age group people, and we were still carrying on doing those things we used to enjoy together. But when it comes to time to worship, the Muslims will go to their mosque. I will do my own thing. When it comes to Sunday, they know they can't touch my Sunday because it's a day when I go to church to worship and so on. And we gave that kind of respect for our individual faith. But everything else we did together. That was cultural, that was normal, that was socially acceptable growing up and even till date. So people should know that, well, if they allow themselves to be drawn away from, if anything cultural will draw them away from their faith to the point that they will miss heaven, and I want to use the common parlance, then people should feel free to abstain. But otherwise, going to a Shango festival, for example, I was in Drola Dipo's house last year for the opening of the World Shango Festival because I appreciate the services he rendered to our nation, to our culture, by the role he played as Shango in the theater. And so if anybody saw me there and thought this man has become a pagan because he was at Drola Dipo's house here in Ibadan, fine, let them assume that, but I am not. I am still a Christian. So people should have to learn on their own and be able to stand by their faith and still be able to respect their culture.
Okay.
Maybe the reason people are apprehensive of the traditional metaphysics is because it's actually difficult to draw the line between what is acceptable and sorcery and black magic. So,
and even to other ministers of God, Christians, and they see somebody that is a minister, a well-respected person, a Christian, relating at that level because he embraces the culture. Their own perception about it and the way they will want to relate with the person will be different. But why?
Well, then you come to individual choices. And if people have conditioned themselves in such a manner as to feel like anything not strictly Christian is abhorred, is untouchable, then it's nothing you can do. But here we are. I have not, there's no bere, there's no incision of any kind on my body. I don't take any concussions. I don't, there's nothing.
Oh, even as a prince.
I don't wear armlets, I don't wear, well, the only ring I wear is one bear with the cross of Christ on it, and so on. And my heart, it's aligned with the ways of Christ. And that's the important factor.
So where is the place of sorcery and black magic?
Well, you see, this belongs in the esoterics.
Okay.
And there are, when you look at the esoteric factor, perhaps even in religion and in society, they belong in a different world. They belong in a different spirit world that only those who are involved can explain. And they know what they experience, they know what they benefit, if they do benefit anything from it. And so for us, it's not I don't consider it a serious concern, personally.
Now, would a world without religion actually translate to a world without God? And I ask this question because many wars, mass killings, mass destruction has been perpetrated in the name of religion. Yes, man does need God, but does man need religion?
Man needs God, and religion is one of the most helpful ways of giving man direction in following God, in knowing God, in loving God, and in serving God, and thereby benefiting humanity or the totality of creation.
Now, many churches now, if you look around, they commercialize the gospel. Maybe because of the time we're in, a lot of churches are springing up, every time. So what's your perspective about this?
Well, churches will continue to spring up, no matter how we feel or what we say, even here. And thank God, the whole world is hearing us. Simply because people are seeking God to find meaning for life. People are seeking God to be sure they are well protected. People are seeking God to be sure that when life ends here, they have a place in heaven or in the Father's house. And the knowledge, the understanding of how to get there for the general public is endless. Endless because there will continue to be new inspirations for people to say, hey, the way we are doing this to reach God and serve God and belong to Him is not adequate. I've discovered another method, or I've found another way. I have found another strategy. And so I want to start and experiment with it. And those who feel like, okay, what we have at the moment is not adequate for us. What this person now is presenting may serve us better. There will always be that kind of a phenomenon. We can never run away from it. And so as long as people are thinking, people are meditating, people are researching, and there will always be new movements in the field of religion, Islamic, Christian, and thank God there are not so many religious groups in this country, because some people have said that there are more than 400 religions in the world, but we are more familiar in this part with Christianity,
Yeah.
and with Islam, and the African traditional religion. But there are 400. And so the exposure to those that are available here, and probably the modernization, the revitalization of those ones that are here will continue to happen, and it will attract its own audience. So that we can stop more churches and more mosques and more fellowships. No, we cannot. It's just because people are eager to follow God, to know God, and to serve God.
It looks to me like you have also outlined the dynamism of the individual faiths. Now, in the midst of all this search by mankind for God, how fruitful has it been? And do you think advancements in modern science and technology have significantly challenged the old belief systems?
Well, challenge, the word challenge, I do not see even the AI science,
Cloning.
the cloning and all those technologies. I don't see them challenging the sovereignty of God and the creativity of God and the mysterious powers attributable only to God. I don't see them challenging them. I see them proving that whatever we have seen or claim to know are still very little compared to what is available and knowable.
Do you think, are you apprehensive that man may be building another Tower of Babel?
Well, I don't think so.
At least with the way religion is going now.
Well, I don't think so. Even with our new inventions, with our new technologies, even when television first came, we assumed that, oh, look, you can sit wherever you are and look at somebody in Ibadan and listen to them and so on. And to us, it was wonderful. It was wonder, one big wonder. But now today, there have been other wonders. And there are other wonders still coming. But God is still in control. Because we believe that He owns the world, and He guides the world and directs the world. And those who believe in Him and trust Him will never have any reason to be ashamed.
Well, you have said that God, even in the midst of the most significant scientific advancements, is also manifesting Himself in the midst of these advancements.
Because everything we are using till tomorrow, none of them has been made by man. We still use common God-made materials to produce our advancement in science.
But there are those who also believe that agents of the forces of darkness are the ones working overtime to draw us away from the reality of the existence of the Most High.
Well, they have every right to their belief. If they are convinced that's the way it is, you and I cannot stop them.
Why are the most religious nations the most backward?
Well, give me an example of maybe 2 or 3.
Afghanistan, by recent data, was said to be the most religious nation in the world. We are next.
Okay.
We are second.
But we are not backward. Only we are moving
Nigeria
slowly.
is so religious, and we also have even moved beyond the level.
Only we are moving slowly because we are allowing our interpretation and use of religion to hold us up. That's it. Because there are still many other Islamic nations, like the people in Kuwait and other parts.
The Afghans would not consider the Kuwaits as
As
true Muslims.
You see, so that's another factor. So it all depends on our use of religion. If we use it to draw ourselves back, we will find ourselves in our right place. If we use the religion to move ourselves forward, we will find ourselves moving forward. Nigeria is not in the same category as Afghanistan, for example, because we have not reached the stage of fanaticism that forbids a lot of stuff that are being forbidden in some countries, and I won't want to keep repeating a particular nation. And Nigeria is diverse in its own religious understanding, in its own religious conviction, and I believe that that interaction has its own productive elements.
This program, Guest of the Month, is live on BCOS television, and we are also live streaming on our radio station, Oluyole FM 98.5, on Okeogun FM. That's our sister station in Alaga, in Naija TV, and all our social media handles. Guest of the Month is transmitting live, being live streamed on all our social media handles. In the good book, the Christian good book, there was a story of this prophet who was worried towards the end of his life. And he asked God that what is going to happen after he has gone, after he has been called back to base. He looked at the contemporary crop of prophets, and what he saw was not very pleasing to him. He was worried about who was going to take over when he eventually leaves this earth. And God opened his eyes to make him see that he had hundreds of other prophets in reserve that could do the job just as diligently as him. So what I'm getting at here is that have you had reason to exhibit such worries looking at the contemporary crop of Christian religious leaders? And has God been speaking to you that there are people, hundreds of people, like he told that prophet, that would take over from you when you are called back to base?
Okay, well, that particular prophet actually was concerned that he was the only one left doing God's will. And challenging the tyranny of the ruling elite of his period. And he came to a point of dejection, total depression, until God revealed to him that there are multiples of others who believe in God, who trust God, and who have not bowed to the idols that those rulers and kings of those era were asking people to bow to. And yes, any elderly priest or pastor or bishop or even head of churches sometimes could feel worried that when is a revival going to happen in Nigeria, for example? When will it happen that the gospel we've been preaching from 1842 till date, when will it become embraced by the totality of our people? Surely one would worry, but then that kind of worry will be a waste of energy and time, because the church belongs to God. Christ is the foundation of the church. He has given the assurance that the gate of hell shall not prevail over the church that he has established. And so that should give every leader the assurance. So all you need to do is offer your best while you are here and leave the rest to God.
Okay. Now, let's look at religious leaders now and the people. What are the things they need to do to restore confidence, or public confidence, the people's confidence in the church?
Well,
Because
first,
a lot of people just feel religion, some are even tired of, going to worship. Some may say it's personal. But religious leaders must have things to do to restore confidence of the people about the church. So what are the things they need to do?
well, first and foremost, those who are leaders in the church should be examples. Basic. We should be examples in every sense, so that anybody who loves God and obeys God and wants to serve God should be able to see among the leadership of their church those leaders who are truly following God, obeying God, doing the will of God. Then we should never be discouraged from preaching the truth of the Word of God. Because the Word of God is powerful and is able to discern, to understand, to find out the thinking of the human heart. And with the power of the Holy Spirit, if the Word is preached truthfully, honestly, sincerely, the power of God will give it the impact upon the people's lives to the point that they will know that God is alive and is worth worshiping, is worth trusting. But first, let us ourselves be examples of what we are preaching, so that they will be able to say, after all, so-and-so is our leader, and we can see how he is behaving. So-and-so is our leader, we can see how he is acting. So-and-so is our leader, we can copy some of his ways and behavior.
Let's talk about the traditional institutions and the governments in Nigeria. I'm talking now about the Obaship and the chieftaincy institutions. And how worried are you about the de-emphasizing of the traditional institutions by government? I am particularly bothered about a situation in southwest Nigeria, for example, where the governor takes over the role of the Ifa Oracle and the kingmakers in the selection and installation of traditional rulers.
Well, you've come to a very, very, what do I say, sensitive, okay. Yeah, you are touching a very sensitive nerve of our society. And for a person like me, I believe that whatever response I give to your question, people will understand that I'm giving my own honest opinion, my honest view in response to a direct question over a sensitive issue that is of general concern. Because your question is of a general concern to the people of this part of Nigeria and of the world. Because what used to be is no longer available. And it could be the beginning of a deterioration that will have other adverse effects on our culture, because our culture is tied to leadership by the kings. It is the apex of our authority. Kingship is the apex of Yoruba authority. Even when the colonial masters came, they still gave some due respect to that apex authority by creating native authority councils and making the Obas relevant to an extent within their provinces and their districts. And in fact, they went further by assigning specific amounts of remuneration to them. First, to show that their roles and positions are honored and that they deserve a part of whatever fund is raised within their communities as an incentive to continue to promote good governance. But here we are now in a situation where the elected officers or servants of the people are now lording it over those who are supposed to be the father of their fathers. You can see it's a very strange situation. It's a very frightening situation, and but I'm not sure that it's a situation that can change easily. I am not sure the situation can be changed either by people's personal opinion or even people's general protest.
Why?
Why?
Yes.
Why? Because the government has superior authority even over the kings. It is at their authority that they are now appointed or selected. It is by their authority that they are enthroned. It is with the authority that they are paid. And beginning from the action group years, government could even decide that a king doesn't deserve to be paid anything but £1 in a year. And that gradual erosion of power from the kings has continued up to date.
But if you could have your way in the current arrangement, what manner of enhanced constitutional rules would you suggest for traditional rulers, especially in the effort to end insecurity, for instance?
And you see, like I said, those kings were the rulers of their community. They are the head of the apex authority. But the apex authority has been reduced to a servant authority. Even in the matter of security, the kings can only act according to the guidance of the government, from the local government up. Because of the limitations placed on their ability to exercise their authorities. If a king gives a direction, for example, to say all able-bodied men should come out from 10 o'clock every night and patrol their streets till 4 a.m. just to ensure that no robberies, no kidnapping, no anything harmful to the people. And the local government chairman says, No, it must not happen. It cannot. So our system as it is no longer encouraging the apex authority of the past to exercise that authority. And once that is taken away, the rest is mere symbolism rather than reality.
Now, still leveraging on the causative factors of the nation, of the country's major national challenges, especially that which has to do with insecurity. Now, you have been to many parts of the country and you have witnessed much of the Nigerian story. But me, the younger person that I am, I've noticed that we all, in other parts of the country, we tend to collectively blame northern Nigeria for many of these problems. And then we talk about, when we talk about restructuring, you hear statements like, let's referring to the north. So why do you think this is so? Why is the north getting blamed for everything?
Well, I'm not one of those who blame the north for things not being the way they should be. Indeed, I've always blamed all of us.
Well, they say the North is complacent and they refuse to hold leadership accountable on their side.
Well, I don't believe so. I mean, in fact, I'm currently the chairman of the Yoruba Unity Forum, which Mama H.I.D. Awolowo formed before she passed. My brother, Bishop Bolanle Bonigi, was also chairman before I took that position. And we've held meetings with the Arewa Consultative Forum, with the Indigbo people, their leadership. We even, at a stage, formed a Southern People's Congress. And I was part of the leadership at that level. And I blame all Nigerians for the woes of Nigeria. The share of it that will go to each zone may be different, may be higher for some and lower for others, but all of us together, for me, are responsible for the way we are and what we're in the position we found ourselves. And until we all sit down and agree, we will continue as one nation, which is better for us.
The last time we started together, the last national confab, the North is also being blamed for being responsible for the non-implementation of the recommendations of that confab, for the confinement of the recommendations into the dustbin of history.
But you know, you have to also remember history too, that the North alone cannot impose itself on us or its will on us.
They have the numbers.
Of course.
National Assembly?
Well, they do have the numbers, but all the same, there is always a situation where nothing can happen until all of us agree. Even if they have the numbers to say no to certain things. If the administration, those who have the authority, who are ruling this nation, want something and they consider it best for the whole nation, there is a way of going about getting it.
What is your take on restructuring, and what brand of restructuring are we talking about, considering the peculiarities of contemporary Nigeria?
Well, to restructure this nation, basically, less power should be at the top. That's, for me, basically the major issue. And we should devolve power to the regions, to the states, to the zones, if you like, because now we are talking more and more of zones rather than, of course, there are groups who are talking of regions and doing their own divisions and how many states will be in which part and how many in that part. There are some who are talking of equal number of states in each zone and all those factors. But less power should be at the top. More power should be down where the people really are, so that they'll feel the impact of government more. They will be able to do more. If we can return to the state we were before the abolition of the regions, for me, it would be the ideal.
What will benefit us, even if we go into it? How workable it is?
It should be workable. Anything is workable if the people agree to work to make it work. If people agree to make it work, it can work.
Even within the individual ethnic nationalities, the mutual distrust and suspicions are so high. So that's why I said a lot has happened since that time you were talking about. The Jebus have become more conscious of who they are. The Ibadans have become more conscious of who they are. The Ondos and the Ekitis. For instance, I'm sure if we were to have a Yoruba nation within that entity still called Nigeria, I'm sure where would be the capital, for instance, would be generate a lot of furrow.
Of course.
So we still have our differences.
Always. Usually, always.
The Ibadan would automatically assume that it should be them.
Yes, of course.
And of course,
others too would. But then eventually, the people who are concerned will have to now sit down together and decide, even if they will now do something peculiar, unusual. You will wonder, do you rotate state capitals, for example? Do you rotate? Do you say, okay, you